All right, Shalom, Shalom. It's Brother Yatazadak, hero of Israel. I'd like to start off by giving honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Kakwadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. This is Revelation chapter 9 breakdown, right? So we can get right into it, right? Right? Making it as cohesive as possible, right? Because when I first came into this truth, right? The scriptures say, right, to desire the sincere milk of the word, right? The principles of the oracles of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, like it says in the book of Hebrews, right? Laying aside, right, the principles, right, which is repentance, right, and growing, right, in this thing, right, because this is what it's about, right? So when I first came into the truth, right, Book of Revelation seemed as something, a little bit of a blur, right? But now, right, through the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, right, and double honors to them, right. In due time, right, you can get a better understanding, right, and ultimately do videos on these prophetic breakdowns, right. So let's get right into it, right? Giving honor and glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Kakwadash. Right, this is Revelation chapter 9 and verse 1. Right, so that's what it's about, right? Feeding the flock of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. Right, precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little. Right? Making it as short and sweet as possible, right? Revelation chapter 9 and verse 1. And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven upon the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit, right? So you can watch the Revelation chapter 8 breakdown, where I went through, right, what these seven trumpets are, right? The first and third, right, it's talking about the destruction, right? The fourth, right, which is in this chapter, right, all the way to the sixth, right? Because you have the fourth, right, which was the fourth trump was Revelation 8 and 12. That coincides with the destruction. This chapter is what? A flat, right? It goes back in time. This is John the Revelator receiving a flashback, right? A vision, right? Concerning the fifth trump, right? But once you get back to the sixth trump, right, it goes back to the the beginning of the destruction, right? And the seventh trump, like I brought out previous video, is Revelation 11 and 15, right? So when you're dealing with the trumps, with the seven trumpets, right, they kind of jump back and forth into time, right? Unlike the first and sixth seals, right? They're, right, for the most part, they're in chronological order, right? Revelation 6 and 1, right? Salakia, verse 1, right? That's going forwarding into when Mashiach Yahushua returns, right? Revelation, 6 and 3, which is the second seal, right? Talks about Esau receiving power, right? The third seal is the black horse, right? Which is the right, the coming of the, right, he had black horse, right, and him that sat on him representing the pair of balances, right, which is speaking about the judgment, right, the dearth coming, right, the fourth seal, right, Revelation 6 and 7, right, it's talking about the pale horse, right, which is the calamity, right, when these things, right, actually are manifest, right. So the fifth seal, right, those that are going to die in this truth, right, those that did back then, right. The sixth seal is the destruction, right, and the seventh seal is Revelation 8 and 1, right, which goes into, right, the seven trumpets, right? So we're going to continue, right, with the fifth angel sounding, Revelation 9 and 1. And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven upon the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit, right? Um, right. So the key of the bottomless pit, right? This is right, the vision given unto John the Revelator of World War One, right? Revelation 9 and 2. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit, right? So this is the vision of World War One, right? Revelation 9 and 3. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power, right? Which are what the locusts represent, the dog fighters, right? Which they had sort of scorpion-like tail turrets, right? Which were mounted in the rear, right? And right, which is right. We can look that up for you real quick, just so you can see, right? Dog fighters, World War One. Right. See if I can get one with the actual turret. Right. So you have. I'm gonna have to click on one of these. Right. Let's just click on some of these. Which probably represents what I'm talking about. Fighter planes, World War One. Right. Slovakia. Basically, they have turrets mounted in the back. Click on one of these. Maybe we'll see it. World War One planes. Right. Slovakia. Right. Here it is. There you go. World War One aircraft. Right. Symbolizing right here. Right. There's a turret. Right, which is like a scorpion tail. Right. See that? Right. Revelation 9 and 3. There came out a smoke locust upon the earth, and unto them was given power of the scorpions of the earth have power. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. Right? So that, right? Let's go back to that. right? So that represents the elect, right, being preserved during those times, right? The seed being preserved of the elect, right? That they would, right, whether they were in actual conflict or right, right, caught up in around when these things were happening, right? It's talking about the elect being preserved, right? Um, from being destroyed as a seed, right? Revelation chapter 9, verse 5, and to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months. The torment was like as the torment of a scorpion when he striketh a man, right? So the 5 months is what? The 5 years, right? From 1914 to 1919, right? When the conflict was lasted, right? Um, right? And the torment was the torment of the scorpion when he striketh a man, right? Which is right, um, um, right, because that's talking about right the medical treatment in that era, right, was minimal, right? So their torment, right? You get bitten by a scorpion, right? Which is why it's very painful, right? So they didn't have the proper pain medications, and right there were certain of those that were in those conflicts, that conflict, right? Losing limbs and all that, right? Which is why it says in verse 6, Revelation 9 and 6, in those days shall men seek death, and they shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them, right? So you had even certain of those that were wounded in these conflicts, right? They would beg the people, right, to cut off their life support and all that, right? Because that's how bad the wars got, right? That's how wounded the people were, right? And the medical treatment wasn't as right as it was minimal during those times because it was a time of conflict, right? Um, right. So it says Revelation 9 and 5, and to them it was given that they should not kill them, right? Because the heathen had to be preserved as well, right? But many of them, right, they were destroyed, right? They were killed, but when it says it should not kill them, right, it's also talking about, right, this is talking about the other nations, it's not talking about the elect, right? When verse 5 is not verse 4, verse 4 is talking about the elect preserved, their seed being preserved during that time. But verse 5, right, though many Edomites and right, those that were caught up in that conflict that weren't Edomites, right, many of them died. But when it says that they should not kill them, right, it's talking about the heathen being preserved, right, as well, right, because they have to, right, receive their judgment in the latter days, right. So the heathen were preserved as a whole, right. It wasn't World War I and then, the Edomites, most of them were taken out, right. So though they died, right, they were preserved, right. Those that survived, right. Revelation 9 and verse 6, and in those days shall men seek death, shall not find it, shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them, right. Revelation 9 and 7, and the shape of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle, right, because the horses have armor, right, and they had armor in the ancient times, right, and on their heads was as it were crowns like gold, and their faces were as the faces of men, right, um, right, and they had hair as the hair of woman, and their teeth were like the teeth of lions, right. So the shape of the locust, right, is talking about, right, the dog fighters, right, with the armor on their heads, whether as it were crowns of gold, right, faces were as the faces of men, right, because it's talking about the pilot as a man mounts a horse, right. You see it, the pilot here in the cockpit, right? Right, this is the horse and the armor, right? The locust, right? Like it says in right, verse 3 as well, right? They had scorpions as a power as the scorpions of the earth, right? The scorpion tails is the turrets, right? Right here, right? They had crowns like gold because the German helmets, right, had a little spike on it. They were made of gold, right? So let's look that up. World War One German helmets, gold. Right, there you go. That's the crowns of gold. And lo and behold, the eagle, right? That's Esau, right? That's his sign, right? There you go. Right, Revelation chapter 9. And right, so the crown of gold with the German helmets, right? Revelation 9 and 8, and they had hair as the hair of woman, their teeth were as the teeth of lions, right? The teeth of lions, right, represents what? Right, the bullets on, right? Because that's the what the lion bites with, right? And you know, lion teeth, you know, they're kind of shaped like bullets as well, right? But also, right, check this out, right? You also had certain decals, right, that had like kind of like teeth, right? But you know, that's not really what it's talking about. Really, it's talking about the bullets, right? Because the teeth look like the teeth of a lion, right? That looks like the bullets, right? They're at the shape of a bullet, right? See? But some of those planes had decals as well, right? Kind of like a right, decals on the side, right? Um, Revelation chapter 9 and verse 8, right? So the hair, being the hair as women, is what certain German helmets, mainly like of the generals, right? They had they had hairs, like false hair on it, right? So let's see, Kaiser Wilhelm first. I know he had a right, their helmets had you see, they had hair as women, right? These are the German helmets, mainly of the upper ups, the upper echelon of the German army. This is Kaiser Wilhelm, right? Prince of the bottomless pit, right? So we're going to go into that as well, right? Revelation chapter 9 and verse 8, right? And they had hair as the hair of women, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions, right? This is talking about, right, the pilots, right, that wore the gold crowns, right? Some of their gold crowns had hair as the hair of women, right? John the Revelator was most likely seeing a vision of the generals, right, standing, right, while the planes are taking off, right? However the case may be, he could have seen, right, the general standing here with his helmet, right, and could have seen the pilots, right, kind of taking off, right? Some of the decals had like lion's teeth, right? The men, right? Faces of men. These are the locusts. This is the scorpion tail, right? The horse prepared unto battle is the plane itself with the armor, right? Golden crown, right? So you probably saw the generals standing, you know, in their order, watching the planes kind of, you know, take off, right? So this is John the Revelator saw, right? Revelation 9 and 9, right? And they had breastplates, as it were breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was the sound of chariots and many horses running to battle. Right, the sound of wings was the propellers of the planes. Right, unlike today's jet fighters, right? They have right, the technology is more updated, right? So the sound is muffled, right? But back then, right, it sounded like the sound of chariots and many horses, meaning they were very loud, right? Breastplates of iron, right? It's talking about the armor, right, of these various aircraft, right? Um, Revelation chapter 9 and verse 10, right? Which is referencing verse 3 again. And they had tails like unto scorpions, and they were stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men 5 months, right? That was also referenced the 5 months, right? Reference is the same reference in verse 5, right? 5 years, right? Um, Revelation chapter 9 and verse 11. They had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, right? But in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon. Now Abad one, right? That the one makes it plural, right? Because you have a plural yum, you have a feminine plural, which is tha, like aquath. That's plural, and singular for sister, right? My sister is Achathia, right? Because the tha makes it feminine, plural, or feminine singular. Or when you say Akia, that's my brother. Ak, that's brother. Akiyum, that's plural. Yum, right? So certain like verbs, right? Like destruction, because that's what abad means, right? Destruction, which is why we say abad ball, destruction to Babylon, right? But abad one makes it plural, destructions, right? Which is why Paul the Apostle referenced who the son of perdition, right? Abad also in the law, for those who study the law, it means to lose something, something that is lost, right? So like a lost item, right? Or your ass is lost, right? You return it back, right? But that's what it's talking about, right? That's where abad, right? The abadan, which is why I say it's abadan, because really it's abad one, right? Destructions, right? Or to perish, right? Really, what's that? That's what that means, right? Destruction, to perish, or something that is lost, right? So let's get that real quick. What is that? Second Thessalonians. Right? Second Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 3. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, right? Who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, shewing himself that he is God, right? And Paul was right referencing the wicked, which is right like I brought out in Revelation chapter 8 breakdown, right? You have the sons of men, right, which are the other nations. You have the sons of the wicked, which are the Edomites. Then you have the sons of the power, right, Sha'ala, right, which are the Israelites, right? So this is talking about, right, Apostle Paul was talking about the wicked, right, the Edomites, right? And that's let's see, Second Thessalonians 2 and 3, right? Let's look that up, right? And then we'll go on to the who the right, the angel at the bottomless pit, right? Angel just means messenger, right? Um, let's see, Second Thessalonians 2 and 3. Salakia. We'll just type in Second Thessalonians. Forgot to put in the 2. Alright. So you can see that word for perdition, right? Apolia, right? Which is why, right? And that's in the Greek for the son of destruction, Apollyon, right? Ruin or loss, physical, spiritual, eternal, damnation, destruction, perdition, right? Biblical usage, destroying, utter destruction, a vessel, right? Because Esau is a vessel fitted for destruction, right? Destruction, right? Right. So let's go to Revelation 9 and 11, right? Revelation 9 and 11. So there it is, Apollyon. Abad 1, right? Which means what? Destruction, right? Ruin, destruction, right? Destroyer. And what does the book of Habakkuk say? That he is as death, right? Ruin, right? Hebrews, Abad 1, right? Perishing, destruction, ruin, right? Abad, which is what? To lose oneself, right? Something that is lost, right? So to perish, right? So destroy, perish, right? Let's see, Deuteronomy, right? So Deuteronomy 22 and 3, right? It also references a lost item, right? So it also means, right, to perish, right? Destruction, destruction. Right, Job 26 and 6, right? Iram, Sha'al, right? Iram meaning nakedness, right? Right. So is naked is death, right? Because Sha'al, right? Sheol, right? That's referencing hell, but that's the grave, right? So naked is the grave before him, right? And Wa'ayan, so Iram Sha'awal, Nakadawa, right? So naked is the grave before him, right? Nagad means to be in front of or in presence of something. Wa'ayan, right? Which means, and there is no kasawath coverings, right? La Abad 1, right? There's no coverings to destructions, right? This is what Esau is, right? Hell is naked before him. Destruction has no covering, right? Meaning his destruction. There's no limit to his destruction, right? Because he pollutes the air, the plant, the philosophy, the people, right? He's a goddamn devil, right? Um, so Revelation. Go back to the book of Revelation, chapter 9, and 9 and 11. Right? What does it say? Salakia. Revelation chapter 9 and verse 11. And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue has his name Apollyon. Right? So he's referenced as a king, as an angel, right? Because the king is a head, a general, right? He was Kaiser Wilhelm. That's Kaiser Wilhelm the First, right? The reason for World War One, right? You can look up the specifics on him, right? And he was called the angel of the bottomless pit. Why? Because an angel is a messenger, right? The Greek is angelos, right? You read about that in Corinthians. Let's get that. Even the congregation of the Israelites, right, were called angelos. Right? It just means messengers. So it doesn't necessarily mean they were called, right, angels, right? Though we are uh, angels in fleshly bodies, right? Because it's about the spirit, right? And then you have ministers on the earth, and you have ministers which are the actual angels, the actual Alahayim, right? This ministers of flames of fire, right? So you got to know the difference, right? Hebrews chapter 1 and 14. Are they not all ministering spirits sent forth to minister for them who shall be heirs of salvation? Let's talk about the ministers here on earth. The angelos, right? Which are the messengers, which is talking about the congregation of the saints, right? And you read on up, it's talking about also the ministers of flames of fire, right? So there's a distinction being made there. And also you go to 1 Corinthians, right? Chapter 10, right? Really, it's right when you hear these things like fallen angels, right? Like in Genesis, it's talking about the sons of God, right? Because you got to ultimately go back to the law, right? The Hebrew. What does it say in the Hebrew? You can't go off what says angel, so it has to be talking about an actual angel. No, that's not what it's talking about, right? 1 Corinthians chapter what is it? Slovakia. Let's get that real quick. Right, 1 Corinthians chapter 11 and verse 5. But uh, every woman that prayeth or prophesied with her head uncovered dishonoreth her head, for that is even all one as if she were shaven. For if the woman be not covered, let her also be shorn. But if it be a shame for a woman to be shorn or shaven, let her be covered. For a man indeed ought to not cover his head, for as much as he is the image and glory of God. But the woman is the glory of men, for the man is not of the woman, but the woman of the man. Neither was a man created for the woman, but the woman for the man. For this cause, here's the point. 1 Corinthians 11 and 10. For this cause ought the woman to have power on her head because of the angels, right? If you go into power, that's talking about a delegation, meaning the women had to set an example amongst the congregation, right? To be, right, shamefaced, right? To set an example, right? A delegation for the younger women, right? For the maidens, right? Because of the angels, right? Because of the messengers, right? Is referencing the congregation, right? And, right, essentially it was referencing her subjugation to her husband as well, right? So let's get that 1 Corinthians 11 and 10, right? Just so you see, right? It's not just, well, it says this, so that's what that means. No, you got to have, right, discernment, as well as, right, you got to go into the Hebrew, you got to go into the Greek, right? 1 Corinthians, Salakia. 1 Corinthians 11 and 10, right? We go into the translations as well. What does that say? Right? For this cause ought the woman to have power, right? Exousia, right? Which is what? Force, capacity, freedom, right? Token of delegated influence, right? Strength, right? Because a woman's strength is her shame, her submission to her husband, right? To exercise, right? Right? A sign of a husband's authority over his wife, the veil which properly required a woman to cover herself, right? Because a woman's hair is her crown, which is her covering, right? So it's about authority, but, right, it's about delegation, right? Showing her subjugation, right, to her husband, right? And you know what angels means? That's angelos, right? So 1 Corinthians 11 and 10, right? Bible, right? I'm going to type that in. Let's analyze the translations, right? New Living Translation. For this reason, and because the angels are watching, a woman should wear a covering on her head to show that she is under authority, right? A sign of a Berean study Bible. For this reason, a woman ought to have a sign of authority on her head because of the angels, right? So angelos, right? Talking about actual angels, but messengers as well, right? Does not Scripture speak about the messengers of the covenant, right? Which are the congregation, the saints, starting with the men, right? Because the flock of my pasture is what? Men. Unto you, O men, I call, to the sons of men. Does not say that in the book of Proverbs, right? So there you go, right? Let's look at the commentary, right? It's all through the Spirit, right? You know, just giving you, right? Right? This is all for edification, right? 1 Corinthians 11 and 10. For this cause ought the woman to have power on her head, right? And it's really not that hard, right? Delegation, right? Because older women what does this say in the book of 2 Timothy, right? They ought to lead by example, right? Right, and the messengers are, right, the congregation, right, starting with the men, right? Sonic power, avail, right? Really, because that's the woman's, right, her power, her delegation, right? Right, her crown, right, is the woman's hair, right? Right, so that's all really it's talking about, right? We're not going to go into all that. Right, so angel is talking about messenger. It's not talking about an actual angel, right? That the angels were present in assemblies for worship was an idea prevalent among the Jews and regarded as they were by the Christian as ministering spirits, right? That's going off. That's not what it's talking about, right? So there you go, right? Which is why Paul the Apostle, right, his letters were hard to be understood, right? Because you had to understand the scriptures and the thought, the Hebrew thought, right? Process in order to understand what they were talking about, right? So Hebrews, Salakia, go back to the book of Revelation, right? We were at Revelation 9 and 11, right? The angel of the bottomless pit, right? It's Kaiser Wilhelm, right? And let's just look this up real quick. This man is responsible for World War One. History.com. There you go, right? You see Kaiser Wilhelm there, right? Right? Kaiser Wilhelm II. Because mighty Russia supported Serbia, Austria-Hungary waited to declare war to its leaders, received assurance from German leader Kaiser Wilhelm II that Germany would support their cause. Right? So it started with an assassination, but this man, right, which is a German, right, Teemanite, right, right, which is Zamalek. Russia's intervention would involve Russia's ally France, possibly Great Britain as well. On July 5, Kaiser Wilhelm secretly pledged his support, giving Austria-Hungary a so-called carte blanche or blank check assurance of Germany's backing in the case of war. Right? World War I begins. Right? So you can look that up yourself. Right? I'm not going to go deep into the history, right? Just going to give you, right, somewhere to start, right, for those that are do their research. Revelation chapter 9, this is Revelation 9 and 12, right? One woe is past, and behold, there cometh two woes more hereafter, right? So now, what does it say? Revelation, right? So you can go to Habakkuk 2 and 4, right? This man is as death, right? Which is what I brought up earlier when I was going over the word abad, right? Let's get that real quick. Habakkuk 2 and 4. Behold, his soul, which is lifted up, is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. Right? It's talking about Esau, right? Son of perdition, son of destruction, Apollyon, Abadwan, right? Bangalal, right? Um, right? That's it pretty much, right? So, right? So his soul is not upright in him, right? Which is why you got Hell Gates, right? He wants to feed you fungus burgers, right? Like Elder Shawamba recently brought out, he wants to do parallel farming, right? He wants to edit, creation, right? Habakkuk 2 and 5. Yet also because he transgressed by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire is hell, and is as death. He cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. Right? This is a book of Matthew chapter 13, verse 33. Right? What does it say? Another parable spake he unto them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like unto leaven, which a woman took and hid in 3 measures of meal, so the whole was leaven. Right? So that's not talking about the 3 measures. It's not World War I, World War II, World War III. The reason why I brought up this precept is because, right, throughout the dispensation of time, right, right, you're gonna have the veil being uncovered, right, which is why this is even the gospel itself, right, was not revealed unto, right, John the Revelator. The whole thing was not revealed to him. The visions of the prophets, right, it was to be left unto the latter days, right, which is why Acts chapter 1 and says it's not given unto you to know the times, right, because it was not given unto them back then, right. This is part of the dispensation of the gospel, right, and right, you can precept that with Revelation 11 and 3, right, which says what? And I will give power unto my 2 witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. Right? Because all these things had to be recorded, and right, in order for them to be given in dispensations, right? So 1 woe is past, and behold, there come 2 more woes hereafter, right? Revelation, Salakia, chapter 9 and 13. What does it say? And the 6th angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar, which is before God, saying to the 6th angel which had the trumpet, loose the 4 angels, which are bound in the great river Euphrates, right? And this is right, the angels, right, in the spiritual sense, right, they are, right, holding back, right, the destruction, right, like you read about in verse 1, Salakia, Revelation 7 and 1, right, the 4 angels, right, stand in 4 corners of the earth, right, those that were bound in the great river Euphrates, right, which are going to go into the right, prepared, right, to influence the minds of men, right, those that, right, are also the angels, right, because you had Book of Revelation speaks about the angel of fire, the angel of power over water, this and that, right, and is also speaking about, right, those the angels watching as well, right, because you have what's called Foo Fighters during World War I and II, right, which were so-called UFOs spotted, or UFO sightings, right, UAPs, right, and but the right, the pilots called them Foo Fighters, right, because they were, right, watching the goings of men, right, holding back certain destructions, right, But right, this trumpet, right, the sixth trumpet, right, this is talking about the loosing of the four angels, right, were loosed for what? To slay the third part of men, right, to commence the destruction, right. So let's get that precept in the book of Proverbs, right. Um, like, I believe that's Proverbs 21 and 1. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, as the rivers of water. He turneth it whatsoever he will. Right? So you have the angels presiding over these wars, right? Sightings in Ukraine, right? The chariots are sighted, even right in the midst of America, Babylon the Great, right? So the sixth trumpet, right, is the commencing of the destruction, right? Because what does it say in Revelation 7 and 1? To hold the four winds until the servants are sealed, right? So when the elect are sealed, right, the prophecies, right, the charagma is mandated, right, that he's going to loose those angels, right? Precept that Revelation 7 and 1, right? Which says what? Revelation 7 and 2, and I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God, and he cried with a loud voice to the four angels, to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads, right? So it goes into the 144,000 and the large multitude, right? So Revelation chapter 9 and verse 15, the four angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year, for to slay the third part of men, right? Um, right. Which is what does it say? Um, right. So that's talking about the commencement of the destruction, right? Revelation 9 and 16. The number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000, and I heard the number of them, right? So this is talking about the missiles, right? 200 million missiles, right? But really, it's not actual 200 million missiles that will hit America, Babylon the Great. It's the power of 200 million missiles, right? Um, and you can also precept that with Isaiah 5 and 26, Jeremiah 51. You can look that up yourself. Talking about the missiles, right? And these are allegories for the missiles, right? Um, Joel 2 and 1 and on down, right? It's talking about the missiles, right? What's that? Jeremiah 51 and Jeremiah 51. What is it? Got Jeremiah 51. Wise man. Salakia. Let's get that real quick. You can start at Jeremiah 51:37, right? Babylon shall become heaps, a dwelling place for dragons, an astonishment, and a hissing without an inhabitant. They shall roar together like lions, they shall yell as lions' whelps, meaning the missiles. In their heat will I make their feast, and I will make them drunken, that they may rejoice and sleep a perpetual sleep, meaning they're going to hit their target, right? In their heat, right? They're going to make their feast, meaning they're going to swallow up America Babylon the Great. They're going to sleep, meaning they're going to perform their mission, right? And that's it, right? Boom, and right. I'll bring them down like lambs to the slaughter, like lambs, like rams with he goats, right? Uh, let's go to Joel chapter 2, verse 1, right? Blow ye the trumpet in Zion, and sound an alarm in my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble. For the day of the Lord cometh, for it is nigh at hand. A day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness, as of morning spread upon the mountains, great people and strong. There hath been ever the like, neither shall be any more after it, even unto years of many generations, right? A fire devoureth before them, and behind them a flame burneth. The land is as the Garden of Eden before them, and behind them a desolate wilderness, right? Meaning it's giving you a picture of a before and after, right? Fire devoureth before them, right? Meaning the warhead, right? Behind them a flame burneth, right? Which is the rocket, right? The land is the Garden of Eden before them, right? That's before America Babylon the Great, and then the after behind them, reading as soon as they hit it, that's it. The appearance of them is that appearance of horses, and as horsemen shall they run. Like the noise of chariots on top of mountains shall they leap, right? Like the noise of a flaming fire that devoureth as stubble, as a strong people set in battle array, right? Right. So you can read it on down, right? Lord willing, I go over Joel chapter 2, right? And Joel 2:11, and the Lord shall utter his voice before his army, for his camp is very great. For he is strong that executed his word. For the day of the Lord is great and very terrible, and who can abide in it? Right? Right. So they're gonna right hit their right. They're gonna be like men running in ranks, right? And they're not gonna right fall amongst their ranks, right? They're not gonna break rank like it says in Joel 2:7, right? This is Isaiah chapter 5:26. 26, and you will lift up an ensign to the nations from afar, and will hiss unto them from the end of the earth. Behold, they shall come with speed swiftly. None shall be weary nor stumble amongst them. None shall slumber nor sleep, neither shall the girdle of their loins be loosed, nor the latchet of their shoes be broken, whose arrows are sharp, and all their bows bent. Their horses' hoofs shall be counted like flint, and their wheels like a whirlwind, right? Their roaring shall be like a lion, they shall roar like young lions, they shall roar, lay hold of the prey, and shall carry it away, none shall deliver it, right? In that day they shall roar against them like the roaring of the sea, and if one look unto the land, behold darkness and sorrow, right? And the light is darkened in the heavens thereof, which is why Joel chapter 2 says that all faces will gather paleness and blackness, right? Meaning, right, after that hits, right, there's going to be a great desolation, right? You can also, right, precept that with, well, let's go back to Revelation chapter 9, right, because it's going to tell you exactly what it's talking about, right? Revelation 9:17, right? And thus I saw the horses in a vision, that sat upon them, having breastplates of fire and jacinth and brimstone, and the heads of the horses were as the head of lions, and out of their mouths issued fire, smoke, and brimstone, right? It's talking about the missiles. By these three was the third part of men killed, by the fire, and by the smoke, and by the brimstone that issued out of their mouth. For their power is in their mouth and in their tails, right? The power, right, is the warhead, and their tails is the burning flame behind them. For the tails were like unto serpents, right, and had heads, and with them they do hurt, right? Revelation 9 and 20, and the rest of the men which were not killed by these plagues, yet repented not of the works of their hands, that they should worship devils and idols of gold and silver and brass and stone and of wood, which can neither see nor hear nor walk. Neither repented they of their murders, nor of their sorceries, nor of their fornications, nor of their thefts. Right? See if I can get another preset. Right? By Hashem Mashiach Yahushai. Right? So that's it. Right? That was Revelation chapter 9 breakdown. Right? Giving honor and glory to Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai. By Hashem Kakwadash. Right? Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Lord willing, you are edified. And till next time, Kwame Ashrala, Shalom.